my beautiful friends, my fellow space blobs and sparkly blobs, or whatever form you want to poetically describe yourself as. I am really happy to have you here in this space, that you are in this world, and that we get to have these little moments together. And we are going to be exploring the archetype of Capricorn today. And we are also going to be getting ourselves prepared for this particular upcoming Capricorn season. This is such a special time of year. I think it's really important that we do check in. And the archetype of Capricorn can be really, really helpful in doing that, because I think a lot of us feel quite vulnerable. This is a vulnerable time of year, and it comes with a lot of questions about our value in the world, how we want to be in the world, what we're really doing here. I think, Capricorn holds a really interesting place in the fabric of everything. As the cardinal earth sign, it begins at the solstice, but it's also the sign that happens to sit here as we open up that more calculated calendar year. And so it holds a really, really special sacred place in the architecture of time and in the way we experience that. And I think that it's a sign that deserves a little bit of justice, a little bit more poetry to it, because it can be one of the most helpful places to look and explore and dive a little bit deeper and find a lot of reassurance and resource in how to be here in the world. So today we are going to explore that archetype in depth. I'm going to offer up a whole bunch of questions that you can explore and play with as we move through Capricorn season. And we will do a little bit of an intuitive tarot reading at the end. So stick around here and let's dive in. Let's begin by exploring this archetype of Capricorn, getting back to the basics and then pulling that part apart a little bit, because I think this is where it really gets interesting. Capricorn is the cardinal earth sign, which makes it an initiator. All the cardinal signs have an energetic of beginning to them, which gives them a very deep tenderness, actually. Yes, courage. Yes, willingness to go forward in life. Yes, willingness to take that step. And then also, of course, then a deeper vulnerability. I don't think we always think about that in terms of Capricorn, but I think it's a really important element of all cardinal signs. And because this is an initiating energetic, it also means that it's about initiating our ability to be here in the world as the earth sign in the cardinal family. How do we be here? How do we continue to physically be here in this world, in a world that is quite complex, in a world that comes with a lot of heartache, a lot of unanswerable questions, a lot of ineffable feelings and experiences? Capricorn holds a place for figuring out how to be here in the world, and that it does not equal business or busyness or running around, as we often hear stereotyped when we talk about Capricorn, like money and amassing things. It's about how do we regulate, how do we physically stay around here in a way that works. And I think that's really one of the core things, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a moment. But I think it's important to start off with that. Capricorn is ruled by the planet Saturn, our dear friend Saturn, who has had quite the reputation in the astrological world over the years, right? Because I think a lot of times Saturn is connected to this punitive father figure. This is often, we will hear about Saturn returns. We will hear about Saturn being in a personal placement, and that being a time of really harsh restriction, of maybe punishment, get your stuff together. I've seen memes that I found to be very disturbing, in my opinion, that had to do with Daddy Saturn handing out spankings, which I don't like. I don't like it. I'm not here for it. I don't want to see that. I don't want to have that energy in my life personally, as far as when I'm thinking about my self-development. But I think that it's really important to remember that Saturn helps us reassess our perspective on what we think of as a valuable life, what we think of as what we need to pursue in order to be valuable in the world. It can be utilized for deeper love, a deeper sense of guidance, and grounded caring for our life energy, caring for how we use our energy, caring for the fact that it's not always about more, growth. I think we live in a culture that's so much about this expansive growth at all times, and it's leaving a lot of us feeling very hollow. Saturn can also remind us to come back to really simple, humble basics that are a source of the deepest joy. And I think that we'll find that through this Capricorn season. That's going to be a theme that's coming up time and again. Capricorn's also symbolized by the mountain goat or the sea goat. The sea goat symbolism is so fascinating. It's really fun to look up imagery of the sea goat. And I've always loved this combo, right? Because we think of Capricorn often, I think, as this very earthy, very much on the land energetic. But Capricorn really does have this understanding of the subconscious and the conscious, the watery and the earthy, the cyclicality of things, and understanding how important that is. As the 10th sign of the zodiac, right? It sits in this place that we often think of as leaving a legacy, being out there in the world, knowing who you are. Who are you in the world? How do people know you? What is your official title? That's often how 10th house is talked about and Capricorn is talked about. But for me, this is a reminder, I think, thinking about that sea goat vision, part fish, part goat, part ocean, part mountain, that it's not just about some physical legacy, some big title that we can put on a LinkedIn page or on our Instagram bio or tell other people about at a dinner party. It's the merging of our true spirit into this physical world, into this physical experience. And are we doing something of meaning and import and care? And I think that's the piece that is so important to put forward here in any conversation we have about Capricorn. It's not about busyness for busyness' sake. It's not about collecting money or titles. It's about, are we honoring our true life essence in the way that we walk through the world? Are we coming back to those deeper basics? And that gets me into some of the stereotypes we will often hear when we're talking about Capricorn, right? Because a lot of times we will hear the stereotypes of anybody with strong Capricorn placements, always thinking about money, always thinking about rigid routines and rules, workaholic, not good at romance because they're too practical and they just want practical things. Why would you do anything that's excessive? Unable to relax, career motivated. We'll always see this kind of business suit, 80s business suit montage whenever we're talking about Capricorn. And I know many people with strong Capricorn placements, and they always tell me, yes, I am somebody who has worked really hard and has a hard time learning how to break out of that. But I do think that it's important that part of the lesson, I think, of Capricorn is not, oh, life is about being busy. It's about, oh, wait, there's a reassessment here about what value really is. And sometimes we learn that through pushing ourselves too hard. Sometimes we learn that by going out and trying to seek all of those outward validations. And I think the journey of Capricorn is you go out, you seek all those validations, you climb up the mountain, you find out what's there, and then you find out that that was never the thing. And then Capricorn continues the journey by saying, now it's time to bring it all back together. So let's talk about some of the questions that I think are going to be coming up for this season. This is a great part of our conversation today. If you want some journaling, you want some things to kind of reflect on around the new year, throughout this Capricorn season, I think these are some really, really great questions, and they will help you kind of assess your own relationship to Capricorn's energy and how you feel about it and where you are on the journey with it. Because for me, Capricorn energy, I think I've said this probably 3 times already in the beginning of this video, but Capricorn is really about our vital life force and how we're honoring it with our movement in the world, with our beingness in the world. It's remembering to care for ourselves. It's remembering to have inner respect for ourselves, respect for our beingness in the world, the respect for our life force, not just about forcing forward and pushing forward and making things happen. So some of the questions that I really like to explore whenever I'm working with Capricorn's energy is, what is my inner parenting like? Do I have a loving voice that helps me take grounded care of myself when I'm tired, overwhelmed, dysregulated? If not, what kind of inner parenting voices are coming up at this time? Depending on the season of my life, I might have more of that grounding, loving energy that says, it's not about all this running around. Let's find the core thing that's important about today. Or I might have a more punishing, rigid internal parent. And part of our work with Capricorn is exploring what our internal parenting systems are and how they're functioning and how they're affecting where we allow ourselves to be alive in the world and where they are keeping us locked in old patterns. What is my relationship to my subconscious? Do I spend time exploring there and to understand my motivations and my definitions of value in the world? This is a really great question. I think Capricorn is deeply tied to the subconscious. Like I mentioned with that sea goat imagery, it's about the combining of our subconscious life force, that oceanic intuitive knowing, and our physical selves, and how those come together. And a lot of times, the things we fear the most, the things that we feel we have to push through the most, are sitting in our subconscious. And I think that Capricorn's a place to really look at that, where we might have a board of review inside of ourselves that's kind of running the show, even though there's nobody really there giving us grades or giving us a report on whether or not we're allowed to be alive. Yet that essence and that entity that lives within our subconscious is affecting us and changing the way we move through the world. What are my feelings of worth in the world? We always talk about money and capital and legacy when we're talking about Capricorn, but really the question there is, do I feel like I'm allowed to exist in the world? Do I feel that I have an inherent value in just existing? Is my value tied to needing to leave a legacy, being busy, doing enough, looking apart, pleasing enough people around me? If so, what is my worth when these things are gone? When these can't be the metrics of my value in the world? This can be a really scary one to look at. I think a lot of us in this community think about this all the time, and I think none of these questions are going to be surprising to most of us here in this space, because I know all of us here are always sitting with ourselves and having questions. But I love asking these questions because sometimes I really will realize how much I will rely on getting things done, getting things checked off my list, knowing that I've done enough for the day in order for me to feel like I can go to bed in peace. And I find sometimes I'll realize, wow, I'm really leaning on that as the crutch for giving myself permission to be alive here, my vital life force to be a part of this world. And this is a really great season, this Capricorn season, to just explore that a little bit. What is my relationship to a sense of safety in a changing world? Do I feel safe to change? Am I often scared of not having the money or the resources to survive at a future point? Am I afraid I won't know how to move when a difficult moment comes? I think we've been working with Pluto and Capricorn since 2008. It's been a very long journey, and I'm going to talk about this again in a moment. But I think that there's been this constant question here of, am I allowed to exist in a world that's always changing, in a world that's always going to have new surprises around the corner? And what is my relationship to a sense of safety in the present moment? Do I allow myself to ever feel safe in the present moment? And am I constantly future tripping? A lot of us do, I think, after these last 3 years, have a lot of feelings of kind of cataclysmic thoughts that will come in, and kind of be repetitive. And this is a really great time to kind of look at that and build some self-trust within ourselves. And finally, do I take time to be present in the world around me in its lusciousness? Capricorn, I think, like all 3 earth signs, is always a reminder to come back to the process of being here in the natural world and being present for it. I find it to be one of the funniest things that this archetype and this energetic has been co-opted into this idea of building a legacy and being busy and being a business mogul and having money, when it's really always been about how present we are in the footsteps we make. It's like the craft of living a life. I think Capricorn is really like the joy of the craft. If you want to write a book, the craft of sitting down and writing 200 words most days, the craft of getting out your materials and sitting with it. And I think part of that craft is being present with the process. So do I take time to be present? Or is my time spent chasing the future? Saturn and Capricorn have themes of time. And is time our master, or are we present enough for time to change and modulate? That's the real question, I think, to ask whenever we're working in this time period. I wanted to take a brief moment to just cover a few transits that I think are kind of central to this particular Capricorn season, and some different things to keep in mind, I think, as we move through, because I think there's going to be a lot of messaging out there in the world just flooding through when it comes to astrology and this Capricorn season. And I kind of want to bring it back home to some central themes. So this Capricorn season comes with a lot of direct movement. While we do start the season off in the middle, directly in the middle of Mercury retrograde, the Sun and Mercury are meeting right as Capricorn season begins. Mercury is going to go back into Sagittarius, Sun's moving forward in Capricorn. However, most planets are going to end up direct by the time we hit January. Even Mercury will station direct on the 2nd. We'll have both Jupiter and Uranus stationing direct right before the new year. So there's a lot of direct energy. Uranus will be the only one left in retrograde during Capricorn season. And a lot of times we will have messages here around all planets are direct, go, go, go. I dislike this message so much. I've always disliked it. I've always disagreed with it because for me, I think it's just incorrect. I'm sorry, it's incorrect. I think it's a very literal translation of energies. It's like, well, planets are forward. So that means that you do things. And for me, the real question here is, I think during this entire Capricorn season, is what doesn't have to be forced to exist in the world? And are we putting our attention on that? It's a scary one. A lot of us feel value through force because we've been taught that for so long. So I think so much of this direct energy, what doesn't feel like it has to be forced through to exist? What comes more naturally? And are we allowed to put a little bit more attention on that? It doesn't mean we don't have craft. It doesn't mean we don't sit down. It doesn't mean that we don't try. But there's a difference between trying and crafting and showing up and force. There's a huge difference. And you can energetically feel it whenever you check into your body. So I think that's going to be a key tenet of this Capricorn season. Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius does bring some themes though, and I just wanted to explore this because this Mercury retrograde, there's a whole video on this as well, so you can check that out as well, but it's exploring the dynamics between our rules, the rigid rules we've used in previous versions of our lives, the rules we create internally as well as externally, and the experience of leaving the familiar. What is our relationship with all of that? Because what rules are ready to shift? What new forms are trying to get in? This is going to be a question coming up all of Capricorn season. Where are we holding rigidly and what is trying its best to get in? It kind of goes back to what doesn't have to be forced into the world. There are things that are just trying to come in. We might be holding ourselves rigid from letting them. And I think we'll be playing a little bit with our resistant energy and our open energy all Capricorn season, retraction and opening. Let that be. Honestly, let yourself retract sometimes and let yourself open. Let that experience work its magic with you, honestly. We're also moving through the last moment here with Pluto and Capricorn. We are going to have a little revisitation with Pluto and Capricorn in September to November of 2024. But this is our last Capricorn season with Pluto present, which gives me goosebumps. Like, it hasn't really hit, even as I sit here right now, it hasn't really hit that is the case. We have been working with Pluto and Capricorn since 2008. We had a brief visit with Pluto and Aquarius at the earlier this year in March this year, but we've been back working with Pluto and Capricorn. So this is our final Capricorn season with Pluto here. And this is the time to take an exhale. Honestly, take an exhale. So much has moved through. We are living in a different world than we were in 2008. And so much has unfolded. So much has been learned. So much ground has been traversed. And so often we will forget to give honor to that process. So just a reminder, take a look around. Honor your journey with Pluto. Honor your journey with learning how to change, with learning how to regulate, with learning how to value yourself, because I guarantee you have done so much. And it might have seemed small as you moved through it, but it's really, really big, vital, beautiful stuff. So I think this is a time to honor that. Finally, I just wanted to mention the moons. We have a full moon in Cancer on December 26th and a new moon in Capricorn on January 11th. These two moons are going to help us. They're in conversation with Jupiter and Uranus and Taurus, each respectively. And it's about really acknowledging what has changed and that now it's time to start slowly, gently moving in new ways. These moons are helping us process if your work has changed, if your lifestyle has changed, if your desires have changed. That's emotional. I think that can be so scary, so tender. It brings up so many emotions, and I think these moons help us to just feel that and acknowledge that, and then to gently start taking small steps with that acknowledgement. Let's get into the intuitive tarot section of our conversation here and just feel through. I'll pull 4 cards for the approximately 4 weeks of Capricorn season. And just feeling through, having some gentle messaging. If you are new here or you've been with me for a while, you know that I like to use this really as a gentle, poetic way of discovering ourselves without there being rigid rules around what any of these cards mean. 3 cards wanted to come out all at once, and they're some of my favorites. We have the Knight of Cups, our deep romantic. We have the Tower, our card of change and recalibration. And we have the 6 of Swords. Pull one more. It's very appropriate. The Tower was coming up a lot with the energetics of Pluto and Capricorn throughout the years. And when I think about this kind of being the last Capricorn season, for me, it's not so much the Tower as a cataclysmic reckoning of this new year. Oh, 8 of Swords. My other dear friend. This is the mystery in action, and that is a very strong energetic in the world right now. It is a palpable presence in everybody's journey. Pretty much every single person I talk to right now is moving through the mystery in a really deep, profound way. But the Tower energy is something that is a culmination process of something that's already happened, something that's already been underway. But let's talk through this. So we start with our dreamer, and I love that. And the Knight of Cups is a dreamer. Sitting and fantasizing and daydreaming about the world that could be. And so often we think of this as frivolous or floaty or not very responsible. But if we skip this part of ourselves, we'll never be fully human in this life. So I think it's okay to start this Capricorn season off with some dreaming. Some soft dreaming, some hopeful dreaming of a world that maybe feels more just, more beautiful, kinder. Let it be what it wants to be. It's that simple, and don't feel guilty for wanting a little bit of dream space. Our dream space is something that is a divine birthright, and every single one of us deserves to have time and space to be there. Now, of course, with that comes the Tower, right? But what's beautiful about the Tower is this is a restructuring of the power systems. And that's something that we've been kind of thinking about, I think, as a world. The power systems of the internet, the power systems of the world, and the internal power systems, the internal rigidity that we might have around how we're changing. All of this is a time of reflection on that point. And like I said, this has been a process that's been ongoing for a while. So a lot of us, I think, are just going to see and understand how those power dynamics have shifted, see and understand how our own process has shifted. And it just being an acknowledgement of that, I think, is really, really powerful. It also just reminds me of some of this energy that has to do with acknowledging you've changed. And with that means seeing the world a little differently and feeling through the world a little differently. And I think sometimes our nervous systems can be quite scared of that, and kind of the older part of our brain that's a little bit more survival based can be a little bit intimidated by that and see something like the Tower and say, oh no. But it doesn't always equate to cataclysmic events as much as a reckoning and a recognizing of the way things have changed. And with that, we have the 6 and the 8 of Swords. And I don't know, these cards I have worked with my whole life. This is a kind of energy that, for whatever reason, I've always worked in this space. The more I look back through my life and who I am, this is a space that I know very well. And it is working with the very fabric of the mystery. Of course, the 6 of Swords represents a time of bittersweet departure. So, like I was mentioning with those moons that are coming up Capricorn season, that it's an acknowledgement of how we've changed and what we have to leave behind. Many of us are feeling this sense that whatever we were doing, definitely before 2020 and maybe even over the last 3 years, is shifting and changing, and we can't quite hold on to the same form. And it's just an acknowledgement of that. And then of course we have 8 of Swords, which for me, I say this every time this comes up, but I find it to be really true each and every time. The 8 of Swords is an energy of the mystery. This is the step that happens before the breakthrough, where the aha happens, where the connection happens, where the new insight comes in. And I think this is one of those things. Our culture's told us avoid the 8 of Swords at all costs because you don't want to be turned around. You don't want to be confused. So panic. Get really scared. And even in more traditional interpretations of this card, part of it is that she feels that she's trapped even though she has a way out. Part of the journey here with 8 of Swords is to breathe, to not panic, to understand that we are in the mystery. We are in the field of the creative mystery. And with that, the calmer we can get, the more easily those connective moments are going to come and meet us. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong if you're feeling like you're working with deep mystery at this time, because it is a component of the atmosphere right now. It is in the air, and a lot of us are wondering what it's going to look like. I think maybe this Capricorn season is not about getting clear, tidy, consolidated answers, but it's about just taking small steps and regulating as best we can and noticing and being present for that noticing. And that's it. And the rest of it will come in time. I'm offering up a really soothing exploration of all of this energy and holding a little container, a little space for us as we move into the new year. It's called Gentle New Year. It's over on Patreon. I will also be doing my weekly conversations over there. I do weekly readings and weekly conversations so that you feel really supported, really checked in with yourself. You have space to do journaling and reflection and like kind of call back your spirit to honor it in this really busy, fast-paced world. I've created a really soft landing spot over on my Patreon. If you're interested, I have a couple of tiers, including my higher tier, the Magic Makers. We gather on Zoom every 2 weeks, and we have beautiful discussions about life, mystery, creativity, and we really support each other and hold each other. So I highly recommend checking that out. It makes it possible for me to sit down and do these chats for all of you when you come support me there. You can also find me on my Instagram and my website. I am planning on relaunching my blog over there soon and having it just be a really soft storytelling space. So I'd love to see you there for that. I am so looking forward to going on this journey with you in the coming months. I love it when you stick around here. Share this conversation with somebody you love who's needing some support. Be sure to stick around for more. We have so much more to explore in the coming weeks. And I'm sending you all so much love.